All right, guys, we're looking at one of the first production pieces of the Sprintex kit. We just finished the install here at 86 speed. Caleb went through. He's going to talk to you guys about some of the installation processes. He's going to give you some tips and tricks. This is not a full step-by-step. There is an instruction manual that do come with these. A lot of it's related to first gen stuff, but it is a little different on the second gen. I don't know if they're still remaking instructions or they're looking at some updates and things like that. But I'll let him kind of go over the install. And it should take you about 5 to 6 hours. That's what it takes us. We've done a couple of these, but I would plan for a nice weekend project. And we'll let Caleb take over and kind of show you guys some of the stuff.
All right, so right out of the gate, guys, you're gonna be really excited to jump right into the blower, but to make it a little bit easier of an installation for me, I actually started out with removing some of the stock parts that we are gonna have to take off. So where I started on this kit is I actually started off removing the stock intake entirely. It does take up this entire space here. There's a little piece that goes here. So I started out by removing the stock intake. From there, I transitioned into getting the bumper out of the way, because even though they did design this kit to be installed with the bumper on, just to make it cleaner and easier, I always take the bumpers off. It's not that difficult on this generation of car, and we have a couple videos on how to do that already. So we get the bumper off. Then from there, it's all about removing the stock manifold. Obviously, this is the supercharger kit, not the stock one, but from there, I went into actually removing the stock manifold. Of course, when you're doing that, you wanna be careful. Make sure that you remove all the connections, clips, fuel lines. Sprintex does provide a detailed guide on how to do that, so make sure you're following that step by step. But from there, I got a buddy, removed the manifold, and then from there, you're kind of going into more of a preparatory phase when you're doing the installation than just throwing the manifold on. A lot of people might be like, oh, let me rush, get the manifold in place. But what I did is there's a lot of hoses that you're gonna have to add. A lot of, if you're familiar with this car, there's a lot of things that runs to the throttle body, stuff like that. So you add a lot of extension hoses. So that's what I did. Instead of going straight into the manifold, we added all of our extension hoses, got everything seated nicely, zip tied nice and clean in OEM Plus. And then we moved into putting the manifold in. So that's just one of my easy tips and tricks. Make sure once you remove everything, you kind of take the time, get all your hoses laid out in the engine bay, make sure everything's getting attached and clamped down, because the last thing you'd want is you go to put this heavy blower on, and then all of a sudden one of your vacuum lines underneath is completely off and you don't have the clamp on. Now you have to take 2 hours to take the manifold back off just to get the clamp on. After you get the manifold on, everything, all the fuel rails and stuff, that stuff's pretty self-explanatory because it retains a lot of the factory clips and attachments. Moving forward, before we even put the blower all the way on, Sprintex does provide their own water cooler for the unit itself. So we went ahead and we got that all mocked up as well. They do provide these really nice brackets that just bolt right up to the OEM AC condenser. So one of the tips and tricks I have for that is obviously the AC condenser, you don't want to take all the bolts out because you guys don't want to have that drop down. You don't want to smash the fins. You don't want to smash into your actual stock radiator and have coolant leaks. I would recommend doing one side at a time, one side bracket, and then once you have those bolted down, do the other side bracket. Obviously that way you keep things from shifting. Once you have all that in place, again, just to make it simple for you, you're going to want to run your water cooler lines up to where they're going to go on the blower. And then from there, because you guys can see here, there's all these lines that you're adding in here in the front, here on the side, here underneath. If you get that all routed into place, then the very last step of actually setting the blower on the car, all your hoses are kind of in place already. So you have the blower in there, you'll install the fuel rails and stuff on the blower while it's off the car. That makes it nice and simple. You can get the fuel rails torqued down in the right spec, make sure all your connections are on. Once you set it in place, everything kind of lines up from there. It all falls into place. Your coolant hoses fall into place, your fuel lines are all already there, and all your vacuum lines are just right there to go ahead and attach to the blower itself. So the only other major point that we want to bring to your guys' attention is when we did seat the blower on the car, these cars do come with different manufactured alternators depending on where you are in the world. So for example, here in the US, we get a lot of these Mitsubishi branded alternators, whereas if you're in Australia, Japan, one of those other countries, you might get an actual Denso alternator, which is a little bit smaller, and they've noted that they don't have to shave it. But if you are in the US, you do have a GR86 BRZ, you're gonna have to shave the alternator. We did shave off about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch to get it to fit properly, filed it down so it was nice and smooth. And then obviously you're gonna wanna do that while you still have your intake ports covered. You don't wanna get any of that metal down inside your intake ports, which can just cause issues in the future, but you do have to grind the alternator bracket a little bit to get the blower to seat. And so from there, after you're done grinding down the alternator, you put the blower on, that ultimately wraps up the install. From there, you're just connecting all your hoses, making sure everything's torqued down, making sure everything's nice and clamped, you don't have any leaks, And then from there, you're just moving on to doing your tune or your first startup. And then one last thing I want to tell you guys about is a lot of people might be intimidated by the belt because it does add a couple extra pulleys here and there and you're not quite sure about the orientation. No worries, Sprintex has a very detailed diagram showing you exactly how to route the belt, and you don't even need a help. You'll use a socket on your OEM tensioner, you'll pull that, just slide it on the supercharger pulley, and it's very simple, self-explanatory from there.
All right, guys, so now that the installation is completed and you guys got some of the basic tips, on startup, some of the things that you're gonna wanna watch for as you just installed this, you dismantled your whole entire car almost. Basically pulled everything from the top half of the motor. So you wanna get this filled up and you're gonna wanna put this to the max level, and you're gonna watch and wait while this thing, after you start this up and get it going, you're gonna wanna check this, you're gonna wanna check your radiator fluid because you will lose some fluid from the initial install from all the factory coolant lines and stuff. There's a pump down there, you'll see that in the installation instructions, it's right down there. And once that circulates and the engine gets heated, this is gonna go down and you're gonna wanna fill that up. So for a day or so, you're gonna be adding to this. It's really easy to do. You literally just add fluid to this. There's nothing else to it. You are adding just regular antifreeze to this. It's pretty much the same thing that you're actually putting in the car. And as I mentioned a minute ago, you want to fill that, plus you're gonna be filling your factory coolant because you did lose some, everything that goes through the throttle body and all that stuff, you're gonna lose some fluid. So as the car's, after your first startup, you're gonna be checking there, you're gonna be checking fluid, your coolant, you're gonna be just checking for leaks and anything before you just get in the car. The next part is actually loading your EcuTech tune. That is also key. That's actually before you even start it, even though you technically could start this and get it heat cycle without a tune. I would not put any RPMs to it, but you could start this, let it run, especially if you're not doing injectors like this car. It's stock injectors, stock fuel pump, it's still on 91. So there wasn't much on the tuning side that needed to be changed. You just don't want to introduce any boost pressure to any of the system itself. So that's it. Basically, once you get it going, you want to let it run almost a good hour or so and just kind of let everything, all the fluids work through and stuff like that. After that, and after your tune is officially loaded and everything like that, then you can go drive the car. Your first drive is not going to be a wide open throttle pull. You're going to want to go and just see how everything is, if it's all fluid, and when you hit the gas, does the car bog or anything like that. And you know, you're going to have to work with the tuner on revisions just to make sure, because different elevations, different fuel types, different fuel and stuff like that is all going to affect the tune itself. Did you change injectors? Did you change your pump? There's lots of variance in everyone's tune. Each of you guys will have a little bit different of a tune than even this car and our car. These are two totally different tunes. He is not on E85, he's on stock injectors. Our car is E85 plus aftermarket injectors, stock fuel pump. So hope that helps you guys. These are just some tips and tricks as we just finished the first system. Andrew's actually picking this car up tomorrow. He came today. He didn't want to drive it. He wants to be full excited once we load the secondary tune in there. Without too much detail, this is Andrew's second car. He's been a customer of ours since 2013. He did have a different blower on his car before. He's never done a turbo, but once he drove this and felt the mid-range everyday driving, the way this feels, and he drove our car, he was 100% sold with this. And I think you guys will be very, very happy with this. We do stand behind this kit. We know it's been a really long time production, and there were some promises made earlier on at SEMA that they would be available a lot sooner. Don't know the exact details, but we do have kits. They have shipped out now, and hopefully you guys really enjoy them. And you can always reach out to us, give us a call, and we'll answer any questions, walk you guys through any of the steps that you guys might need help with. Can't do it for you, but we can give you tips and tricks versus, you know, in collaboration with the instructions that they provide with the kit. And if you have any questions, you should really be taking it to a professional shop that does work on cars, that's familiar with a lot of these things, because they will just know some of the things that they need to check, especially like on the startup procedure and things like that. So enjoy your new blower. Thanks a lot, guys, and see you guys on the next video.